Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello guys, Khamdan here. How's everything? I hope you will okay. Stay safe and stay healthy guys. Welcome to our last group presentation, Inferential Relations. Inference is fundamental to linguistic interaction. For that reason, it is worth taking a closer look at the process involved. It is very easy to say that all of pragmatics involves inference and then to treat inferences as though they are intuitive and obvious. Frequently, they are indeed intuitive and obvious, so obvious that we are usually unaware that we are drawing them. Research into inferential relations is in its infancy relative to research that bears on these relations less directly. That is, research into the areas within pragmatics that make use of inferential relations. So it is hardly possible to interpret a single naturally occurring utterance without the use of inference. So it is useful to consider the relationship of inference to the rest of the linguistic enterprise. Enterprise. Inferential relations at the constituent level. Inferential relations at the constituent level must be single constituent. Why? Information that is already assumed to be familiar to the hearer that has already been evoked in the discourse or can be inferred from what has already been evoked in the discourse. Now look at this example. Fortunately, the definite article is felicitous because the light is inferable, since kitchens typically have refrigerators and refrigerators typically have lights. Now look at the second example. The refrigerator and the light are just as discourse old as the kitchen is. It means that, in this case, the inference is existential in nature. That is, what is inferred is the proportion of that a refrigerator light is existed in this particular kitchen. But inferable to guess, speculate, surmise of an entity does not imply its existence. A refrigerator light can be inferred without actually turning out to exist in the context. Inference and information structure. One strong piece of evidence for the discourse old status of inferable information is the fact that explicitly evoked information and so-called inferable information are treated alike with respect to their placement in non-canonical constructions. Now look at this example. In example 1, there is no explicit prior mention of money. However, intuitively, we recognize that there is an inferential relationship between money and the prior mention of selling something. The inferable money that will result from the sales counts as discourse old, and because it counts as discourse old, it can be proposed. The fact that it can be proposed counts as strong evidence of its discourse old status, since discourse new information cannot be proposed. In example 2, the pen is not inferable, and and the pre and the preposing is infelicitous. Also, there is a second problem in this case, as there is no appropriate object of a preposition to listen the preposing. We can't tell if the infelicity is due to the lack on inferability, rendering the proposed constituent discourse new, or the lack of an object of a proposition. In example 3, the object of a proposition, she will buy X with Y, is licensed, and the pen is not inferentially related to the prior discourse, but is also not related in any obvious way to the rest of the proposing. So here the utterance would be equally infelicitous in canonical word order. So, in summary, an examination of NVO not or a non-canonical word order constructions that constrain constituents to represent discourse all information shows that explicitly evoked information and inferable information are treated identically for this purpose, and therefore can be counted as a single category of discourse all information. Now take a look at this example again. That examples are called bridging inferences. What is it? I will show you later. Example 1. Without reference to inferences, there would be no explanation for the use of the definite in the beer, and it will also, of course, be unclear what beer is referred to. But, as should be obvious by now, the hero draws an inference that the beer in question represents part of the picnic sublist. Example 2a. It is ambiguous. It can mean that I decided to get beer before getting the picnic sublist. In this case, beer is not a part of the picnic, or that of the picnic sublist I decided beer would be the first one I would get. In this case, beer is a part of the picnic. Example 2b. The beer is definite. Definiteness requires some degree of familiarity, and for this utterance to be felicitous, the beer must already be known. Example 2c. Beer is preposed. Although there is not definite to indicate familiarity, we know that preposing requires discourse old status. Example 2d. With both a preposing and the definite, equally requires us to adopt the reading in which the beer is part of the picnic sublist. Now we are going to see about discourse old. Okay, now we are moving to the topic toward a taxonomy of inferential relations. The question of what sorts of relations count as inferential relations really is two interrelated questions. One having to do with the strength of the inference, and the other having to do with the semantic or pragmatic type of the relationship. For convenience, I will call the element in question the one that is taken to be inferentially related to the prior discourse an inferable and I will use this term for both the linguistic constituent and the referent, or property even etc., that it represents in the discourse model. I will use the term trigger for the prior constituent, or more accurately, the information that it represents, with which the inferable information stands in some inferential relationships. Strength of inference. Psycholinguistic research suggests that there are two distinct types of inference in discourse: forward inferences and backward inferences. Forward inferences are made at the time the trigger constituent is uttered, and license inferences to material that may be mentioned later, hence the word forward. Backward inferences are not made until the utterance of the inferable, at which point the hearer has to look to the prior discourse to see what this inferable connects to, hence the word backward. Okay. The forward inferences are also called elaborative, since they elaborate on what has been mentioned, adding new information to the discourse. Most backward inferences are what have been generally called bridging inferences. The hearer encounters an inferable element recognized based on clues such as definiteness or use of non-canonical construction that it seems to be uninferable, and builds an inferential bridge between the trigger and the inferable, which in turn allows the reference to be resolved. This is the relationship between discourse and hearer. Okay, are you puzzled? So do I. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon. Welcome back with me, Gema fikriansyah, and I will to present about types of inference and inferential relation and at propositional level. Yeah, let's begin the presentation. Types of inference is lexical identity, ya, yang tadi itu ya, memberikan identitas kepada suatu atau hubungan dua kata tersebut. Misalnya, she is a nice woman. Referential identity memberikan identitas kepada sesuatu yang kita tunjuk. Misalnya, Jokowi President of Indonesia says the coronavirus is very dangerous. Synonym, the relation between two words has the same meaning. Antonymy, the relation between two words has an opposite in meaning. Part on wall, contohnya itu kita menyebutkan kata kitchen ya secara keseluruhan. Nah, bagian dari kitchen itu ada misalnya lemari, itu piring, ada buku resep, ada kulkas, dan lain-lain. Berikutnya, entity or atribut, memberikan atribut atau kelengkapan atau sifat kepada suatu benda. Yeah, we next to the next slide. Another type is temporal ordering, order of time, urutan waktu. Misalnya saya pergi ke Bandung bulan Juni ke depan, nanti saya mau pergi ke Jakarta, sampai seterusnya dalam suatu teks atau diskurs. Seperti relation is a relation between two space or two place on the text. Type or subtype, ya jenis itu seperti tadi. Saya punya pohon dan salah satunya dari pohon yang saya punya adalah pohon stroberi misalnya. Nah, itu adalah jenis dari pohon. Possession, kepemilikan. Scalar relation, hubungan skala atau banyak sedikitnya. Misalnya, some of the teachers are master's degree, misalnya. Sebagian dari guru adalah magister, yang lainnya adalah sarjana misalnya. Nah, yang terakhir adalah encyclopedic knowledge. Ini adalah pengetahuan yang menghubungkan dua benda atau dua kata atau frasa yang berdasarkan pengetahuan umum yang kita ketahui. Ya, go to the next slide. Is another types of inference or poset. Yeah. Ward and Werner presented one way to unify inferential relation by a concept called linking relation or poset. Jadi poset ini tujuannya adalah mengelompokkan tadi jenis-jenis inferential relation yang banyak itu tadi menjadi lebih mudah. Dengan apa caranya? Dengan itu suatu set yang diurutkan berdasarkan transitive partial ordering. Jadi mengurutkannya itu hanya sebagian saja yang memang punya fungsi yang berbeda, fungsi atau kegunaan atau dilakukan di waktu yang berbeda. Akibatnya bagian lain dari kelompok itu mungkin tidak diurutkan karena memiliki fungsi yang sama dan saling melengkapi. Contohnya adalah temporal ordering, ya, urutan waktu. Salad eaten before meat and meat before the dessert. Atau bisa salad eaten before dessert. Ya. Kenapa kok makanan seperti rice atau potato itu tidak dimasukkan? Karena itu bisa dimakan secara bersamaan dan fungsinya saling melengkapi. Itu disebut, ya, contoh lain ya containment atau keterisian, ya. Then carried his duffel bag into the cottage. In the bedroom he found a silver of soap on the sink, and he removed his baseball cap and damp shirt and washed his face and hands with cool water. Jadi hubungan antara ini tadi cottage dengan bedroom dengan sink ya, itu kita tahu kan ya, pada umumnya cottage itu memiliki bathroom atau kamar mandi, dan kamar mandi itu memiliki sink. Dan ya seperti itu. We move to the next slide. Ya, ini yang berikutnya adalah functional dependent. Relation between one entity to another functionally. In other words, the existence of one thing is depend on another thing. Jadi tidak seperti tadi ya, yang fungsinya saling melengkapi. Jadi kalau tidak ada satu bisa digantikan dengan yang lain. Kalau yang ini namanya aja sudah functional dependent ya. Berarti entity atau benda yang memiliki ketergantungan secara fungsi dengan benda yang lain. Jadi kalau satu benda itu tidak ada, benda yang lain kerjanya bisa terganggu atau bahkan bisa tidak ada juga. Contoh yang paling gampang itu misalnya in the school or university there are student and teacher. Jadi murid itu bisa dikatakan murid belajar jika ada gurunya. Kalau nggak ada gurunya nanti murid belajar sama siapa kan ya? Nggak ada. Guru pun juga gitu. Guru jika bisa dikatakan guru kalau ada muridnya. Kalau nggak ada muridnya, si guru tuh nanti gabut ya, nggak kerja gitu. Nggak bisa dikatakan guru karena nggak ada muridnya. Nah ini juga John went to a restaurant and asked for the menu. Jadi restoran dengan menu itu juga fungsional dependent ya. Tidak seperti yang sebelumnya itu transitif atau saling melengkapi. Kalau ini itu intransitif and not possessed, not transitive and not possessed. Ya, contohnya we ate in a terrible French restaurant last night. The cook was green. We ate in a terrible restaurant last night. The wine we could tolerate, but the food was inedible. Jadi kalau kita membayangkan atau kita pergi ke French restaurant, itu pasti ada wine-nya, bisa hubungan yang tepat ya, hubungan yang saling melengkapi. Tapi hubungan antara cork seperti yang di contoh B ini, hubungan antara cork dengan bukan contoh B, masih di contoh yang A ya, hubungan antara cork dengan French restoran itu tidak bisa atau tidak selalu. Makanya itu dibilang tidak transitif dan tidak proses, karena hubungannya itu tidak saling melengkapi. Ya, sekarang inferential relation at professional level. Ya, kalau tadi kita membahas tentang hubungan interferensi antar dua kata atau frasa, ya, constituent of the discourse or text. Sekarang kita membahas tentang hubungan klausa yang ada pada teks itu secara keseluruhan, ya. Atau nama lain adalah hubungan antara proposition. Nah, seperti yang teks ini, yang aku kasih warna kuning ini adalah kaosnya, ya, kaos. Sementara yang di warna abu-abu itu adalah efeknya. Ya, he finally got tired. All the red tape that seemed to come along with the government. Itu adalah kaos. Efeknya apa? He decided he would work toward making sure that when criminals were put behind bars that they would stay there. Nah, seperti yang di constituent level, untuk yang di propositional level ini juga ada beberapa fungsinya atau macamnya, macam. Contohnya kalau kita ganti so itu dengan n, kata hubungnya, seperti contoh berikut ini. Last night I sat out on the deck and listened to the music. Nah, kalau ini kan bukan lagi cause and effect, karena set on the deck itu bukan penyebab dari mendengarkan musik, dilakukan secara bersamaan, ya. Yang kedua, last night I ate a quick dinner and went for a walk. Jadi ini dilakukannya secara berurutan karena makan dulu baru jalan. Kalau yang ketiga ini tidak ada hubungannya, atau ya bisa dikatakan cause and effect juga, ya. Ya, jika masih bingung bisa ditanyakan ke saya dan kelompok saya besok, ya, di WhatsApp group. That's all from my presentation, and I apology if I have a mistake. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Rizky, Yumna, Pratama. And in this group, I would like to explain about inference, about this topic, inference and coherence, and syntax. Let's check this. So about inference and coherence here. Inference, as you can see here, inferential relation at both the proportional and subproportional levels to help to establish coherence in discourse, to make sure that the discourse is coherent. And the word coherence, as with many linguistic stick terms has been used by different researchers to mean different but closely related things. So take a look like at the example here. The first is last night I went for a walk and I love walking at night. So as we can see here, we know that in I went for a walks and I love walking at night seems coherent, seems a little bit related because the first sentence is about walking, is about last night, and also the second is still related to the first. I love walking at night. So basically, it's still the same. And what about the second? Last night I went for a walk and I love the sound of waves on the shore. So this might we as a hearer to listen to the speakers say this, we tend to try the assumption our we assume that okay, I think that we as a hearer know that this person last night went for a walk, and of course we think that this person walked alongside in the shore. You know, the shore like is a near a beach area. So we think that this person live or stay in a hotel nearby the beach. So last night this person like to walking walking nearby the beach. So that's we can assume that uh, even though it's a little bit farther than before, but still still be related. So we can still think about okay, this person already walk in the shore area, in the beach area. And what about this in C? Last night I went for a walk and I love goldfish. This seems that we might little bit difficult to interpret what the meaning of the speaker because it's it's kind of difficult. It doesn't mean he he is carrying the goldfish or he find out the goldfish somewhere, and it's kind of difficult to make it coherent. So that's the example of inference and coherence here from the first, second, and the third. From the first is so likely relatable, and the second's a little bit relatable, but still we can understand. But the third, yeah, we seem so difficult because the first sentence talk about last night I went for a walk, and the second is about I love a goldfish. So seems like it's kind of difficult for us to interpret, to analyze, to observe what this man talking about. Okay, so next is next so we are going to discuss about cohesion devices. As you can see here, Haliday and Hassan actually use the word cohesion for the sort of linguistic connectedness that they discuss, which in turn they take to be related but not identical to coherence, which they take to be a broader sense of meaningfulness. And, and as you can see here, cohesion, according to Haliday and Hassan, is achieved through linguistic devices such as, for example, anaphora, repetition, ellipsis, or omitting, rather than a repeating word, and so on. They group these devices into the five categories given in, for example, like below here: reference, substitution, ellipsis, conjunction, and lexical cohesion. Okay, so Next, we are going to discuss about next topic. Okay, so next we are going to discuss about Kehler uses Hume's three broad categories such as resemblance, contiguity, and a cause effect as umbrella categories for subclasses of coherence relation. These three classes with their subclasses are presented in below here coherence relation based on Kehler 2002. We can see here resemblance relations such as parallel, contrast, exemplification, generalization, exception, and elaboration. And the second is cause-effect relation. There is a cause and there is an effect relation, such as we can see here, the results, it's the effect. We can assume the explanation is about maybe the cause, why it happened, and violated expectation and denial of preventer. And the last is contiguity relation is occasion. Okay, so let's discuss about this. Oh, sorry. Okay, since we will be looking at how these relations affect the use of non-canonical construction, it's worth taking a moment to exemplify them. Examples of each relation are provided in. So in this case, I only put only 3 examples because there are more. As we can see here before, we can count it's more than 10, so I only put 3. So I hope you uh, understand about understand a little bit here about this explanation. If you want to look further, understand furthermore about another example, you can check to the book that we are using. And the first is, sorry, first is Matilda did not run, but she made journey after journey down the cellar stairs with the feet that grew weary, and then she tried the china while her sister washed it. As you can see here, we can see that this they are using the verb, second verb, I mean the past verb. You can see here did not, made. These are past verb and then dried. So all this making as parallel. So it's about the past, not the present or the future. And the second is traditional swimming lesson usually don't help, but a unique aquatic clinic in Seattle has devised a revolutionary program designed specifically for aquaphobes. Health, 1987, volume 19, exception. So there is a sentence here, there is a statement, but there is an exception, like a but here, but a unique aquatic. And the third is the example of denial of preventer, as we can see before. It's from cause-effect relation here. Ivan was very well aware of this, despite the fact that, yeah, we can see that we can understand meskipun, ya, meskipun faktanya, despite the fact that there was something quite unrelated waiting on him just then. Okay, next we are going to discuss next topic. Okay, so next we are going to discuss about coherence and syntax. So according to Kehler, he said that applies the theory of discourse coherence to a variety of syntactic phenomena as evidence for the validity of the three classes of coherence. relation posited by Hume. We will discuss two of these, VP ellipsis and gapping. So there's a relation between coherence and syntax here. So about the VP ellipsis here, let's take a look at this example. JC was having slight labor pains that evening, but the pains were too far apart, so I finally told her I was going to lie down and to wake me up when the pains got stronger or closer together. I fell asleep and she did too. Let's take a look at this in here. I fell asleep and she did too. So we can take a look at this. She did too refer to the prior sentence, to the prior explanation here, fell asleep. So there is like a removing, what is it called? Removing unnecessary verb, verb phrase, as we can see here, verb phrases that use more verb. And if this context, the situation that they both fell asleep together, so we can use like this to remove redundant or unnecessary for phrase. We can see here, I fell asleep and she did too. As we, as the reader, we understand, as the listener, we understand that, oh, she fell asleep. Uh, I mean, the JC fell asleep and her sister did too, means also fell asleep too. Okay, I hope you understand because it's kind of a little bit difficult, but let's assume that we understand the general idea of coherence and syntax here. So, okay, next. Okay, so the second syntactic constructor we will consider with respect to this coherence relation is gapping. Gapping means here is like a distance, it's like a ada jarak ya, ada celah yang membuat makes us think that this kind of like a jarak di antara kita, as we can see here, it's like a gap, it's like a hole, it's like a distance. Here we can analyze. In the last shadow of the castle, he could not longer bear the sensation of Willis watching from above, and climbed onto one of the boulders and sat there with his arms around his legs, watching the girls get smaller on the beach. Yeah. And Grace wore a pink dress and Mary a white dress. So there is a gap here. So let's take a look. You might feel confused or there is something wrong, but when we take a look at the preceding sentence here, Grace wore a pink dress. So we can easily understand. We can recognize that the the context here, Grace wore a pink dress, and of course, while in the same context, Mary a white dress. So in this case, there is a gap. So the gap here means also Mary wore a white dress, but by using the gapping method of coherence relation, it doesn't need a gap as long it doesn't need verb. I mean, as long as there is a context or relation between the first and the seconds. Okay. Next, we are going to discuss the next topic about something here. Okay, so this is the next topic. It's kind of a little bit difficult to understand, but hopefully we can understand together here. So, as noted in Levin and Prince 1986, gappings are subject to an interesting constraint on their interpretation. Compare their example in. Okay, so A till D, we can read together here. Sue and Nan had worked long and hard for Carter. When Reagan was declared the winner, Sue became upset and Nan became downright angry. Okay, the second here, it's a little bit different from before. Sue and Nan had a little bit same, had Sue and Nan had worked long and hard for Carter. When Reagan was declared the winner, Sue became upset and Nan downright angry. And C. Sue's historian in public have always gotten on Nan's nerves, but it's getting worse. Yesterday, she couldn't have her daily egg McMuffin because they were all out. Sue became upset and Nan became downright angry. And D. Sue's histrionic in public have always gotten on Nan's nerves, but it's getting worse. Yesterday, when she couldn't have her daily egg McMuffin because they were all out, Sue became upset and Nan downright angry. Levin and Prince, 1986. Example for A and so let me explain from this topic. There's a difference in this interpretation between the example 3, 5, the example A with B and the example in C with D. In A and B, the two even are independent of each other, even though they share an outside cause. That is, Sue's becoming upset and Nan's becoming downright angry are both due to Reagan's being elected, being voted in election perhaps, or politics, election and so on. But in C and D, the example C and T, on the other hand, there's a causal relation between two. Sue's becoming upset is what caused Nan to become angry. Interestingly, in the non-causal cases, both the CWO variant in A and the gap variant in are purely felicitous. In the causal cases, on the other hand, the CW variant in C is fine, but the gap variant in D is infelicitous. It's a little bit not worthy. It's a little bit not nonsense. So why should this be? Again, Kehler argues that the difference has to do with a difference in the coherence relation. In A with B, the relation is in question is parallel. One of the relation in the resemblance family, as we discussed before. But in C and D, on the other hand, the relation is resolved from the cause-effect family. In general, it appears that gapping is possible in the context of resemblance relation, but not a cause-effect relation. Not for the example here, C and D, for the reason that the resemblance relation, as with VP ellipsis, verb phrase ellipsis, involve a syntactic reconstruction, which in this case reconstruct the missing verb. For this reason, The reconstruction must, as with synthetic reconstruction of VP or verb phrase ellipsis, be synthetically identical to the source clause. Okay, hopefully you understand. And next we are going to discuss about this topic. Sorry, doesn't this topic. Okay. Okay, so about this topic here, for this reason, the reconstruction must, as with synthetic reconstruction of VP ellipsis, be syntactically identical to the source clause. Okay, let's take a look at this example. My wife and I had a great dinner last night. My fettuccine alfredo was amazing, and my wife, lasagna. Here's the thing. Here, even though we can infer that the speaker's wife had lasagna, lasagna is like a kind of food, kind of baked dish, and fettuccine alfredo is like a Italian food. So we can discuss that these both are probably Italian foods. And okay, back again. Even though we can infer that the speaker's wife had a lasagna for dinner, in the absence of a strict synthetic reconstruction, the gapping is infelicitous. You can see here the gapping here. And my wife lasagna is like a little bit nonsense. It's not related enough. It's like difficult to, little bit confusing to understand. And again, as with verb phrase ellipsis, it makes sense that a coherence relation based on resemblance requires a strict synthetic resemblance in order to allow a synthetic reconstruction. And unlike VP ellipsis, verb phrase ellipsis, gapping does not permit semantic reconstruction for other relation. Thus, for cases like we discussed before, C and D, where no resemblance relation is present, neither synthetic nor semantic reconstruction is permitted, and the gapping is infelicitous, means not related or nonsense. Okay, that's all. Thank you for your attention. If you have a question, we can discuss in the group. Have a great day.